April 17th, 2013. Well, it's almost midnight. Class let out about 10 and I followed Amy home. I parked my car under the shadow of a large oak tree and watched her get out of her Volvo and enter her house. God, her home was so disgusting. Even the outside of the house was nasty. The shingles were moldy and peeling in places, her yard was small with dead grass, and when I snuck in after the lights went out, the smell was unbearable. It smelled like old garbage and cat feces. There was trash everywhere, leftover food still on the counters, and I'm pretty sure I saw a roach or two. I could hear Amy shuffling around her bedroom, probably getting ready for bed. I felt something touch my leg and heard the most pathetic and frightening sound I've ever heard. I took out my cell phone and used it as a flashlight. I wanted to cry. There were cats. So many cats. All were filthy, their fur matted and so skinny I could see their ribs. It made me so angry I wanted to rush in and slaughter Amy. Maybe I'd forget about the game. But I still wanted to have fun. I'd worry about the kitties later. I turned my cell phone screen off and moved into the hallway. I found the circuit breaker and turned the power off in the entire house. I heard Amy groan and approach the door. I suppressed a giggle and snuck into the kitchen. I heard her trying to flip the lights on, and she said, "Did I forget to pay the electric bill again?" I didn't want her to get to the circuit breaker, so I found a plate and smashed it on the floor. I heard Amy pause, and then she said, "Hello?" I darted out of the kitchen and behind her couch in the living room. I nearly gagged. The smell was unbearable. Amy went into the kitchen and stepped on the broken glass. She gasped and swore in pain. I reached behind me and ran my nails down the wall. She was getting creeped out now. She yelled at the cats as if this was their doing. So I ran across the room, making my footsteps as loud as I could into the bathroom. I listened hard now as Amy's breathing became shaky. She was fumbling for something, and I quickly took my knife and started carving into the mirror. Amy screamed, and I could hear her approaching, so I managed to slip out of the bathroom and into her bedroom. I saw a blinking red light and noticed her cell phone was charging. I looked into it for her phone number, logged it into my phone, and then hid in her closet. Amy screamed. I guess she had found a flashlight or something and saw the message I scratched into the mirror. Kill Amy. She ran into her bedroom, slammed and locked the door, and dove into her bed with the flashlight, whimpering. Now was my finale. I sent a text message to her phone that said, "I'm watching you." Her phone vibrated and she picked it up. Upon viewing the message from the unknown number, she screamed again and threw her phone across the room. I started to giggle, unable to help myself, and slowly opened the door. She pointed her flashlight on me, and I was holding my knife out. She screamed at me, hopped off the bed, and grabbed her lamp as a weapon. But she was an idiot, so when she attempted to hit me with it, the cord tugged and it slipped out of her hand and crashed to the floor. I told her how tired I was of her constant teasing and her stupid face. Then I mentioned the condition of her house and her poor cats. She pleaded with me, saying she was sorry, but I said, "Sorry is just a word for a feeling you've never felt, bitch." I grabbed her greasy black hair, which I immediately regretted because it felt so slimy, and slammed her face against the moldy wall. The flashlight fell from her hand. She kept pleading and crying, begging me to let her go, but I wasn't going to give in. I threw her to the floor and stomped on her hand, breaking it. Amy screamed, and then I broke the other hand. She was struggling, but the skinny bitch was easy to keep down. I laughed and jumped on both of her ankles to break them too. Now that she could barely move, I took off my panda backpack and dug inside for my sewing kit. I took it out and straddled Amy, holding her chin to stop her head from thrashing back and forth. Suddenly, I noticed a black dot moving across the floor and snatched it. It was a cockroach! What luck! I forced her mouth open and shoved the bug inside, then closed it as she tried to scream. I held her tight as I pulled out the needle and thread I had prepared. It was a big needle with nice, thick, strong thread. I started sewing her mouth shut as tight as I could as she screamed and screamed and screamed. Tears were pouring out of Amy's ugly, shit-colored eyes. I tied a strong knot and broke the thread off. I was giggling at the thought of the roach wriggling around in her mouth. How long until she would swallow it? Now I started sewing her eyelids shut. That was a little more difficult, and I'm sure I accidentally nicked her eye once or twice, but I finally managed it. And since she was still alive, I cut her open and grabbed around her chest cavity for her heart, which was beating extremely fast as she continued to scream, but she was getting weak. I told her to shut up and ripped out her heart. I then stood up and stomped on her throat. I picked up the flashlight and pointed it at my handiwork. I nearly howled with laughter as I saw the cockroach crawl out of the hole I had made in her neck when I crushed it. It was one of those moments where you really wish you had taken a video. It would have gone viral on YouTube. Anyway, I chucked her heart against the wall and it splattered fantastically. Now that my work was done, I started rounding up the kitty cats. It was a nasty job having to look everywhere for them. I found an entire group of starving kittens under the sink. Their eyes weren't even open. I found myself sobbing as I gently carried them to my car. When I was sure I got all of them, I had about 25 kitties in all. I wanted to vomit from a combination of their smell and their condition. It makes you think. Have you ever come to the realization that when you adopt a pet, you may be saving it from a potential animal abuser? It makes me sick to see an animal suffering. If I see a stray, I try my best to nurse it back to health, but I am not financially stable enough to care for a pet as much as I would like to. But after I make sure the animal is happy and healthy, I put up a listing on Craigslist. I don't take just anyone, though. They have to submit an application to me about their history with pets, their living conditions, and how much money they make. Once I selected someone, I drove to their house to make sure it's a good environment. I am a people person, so I know if someone is really willing to love. And then I bring them their new friend. I don't ask for money. All I ask is that they take care of the pet and love it with all their might. Sometimes I do have to spend quite a bit of money to make sure the animals have all their shots and stuff, but it's worth it in the end. The feeling of knowing you saved a life is absolutely amazing. To see a cat or a dog go from miserable, filthy, and underfed to a happy, energetic, well-kept buddy makes me feel euphoric. I was going to save these cats, even if that means halting my project with the shed. I might have to get a part-time job because I've never tried to save so many animals at once. The hard part might be bathing them since cats hate water. I'm gonna go do that before I go to bed tonight. I'm feeding them a bit right now. I don't want to feed them too much because they could eat themselves to death like the Holocaust victims when they were finally rescued from the camps. The American soldiers had to stop them from eating so much. So I'll wean the cats back onto food, but it looks like one of the females might be pregnant. I'll probably be crying myself to sleep tonight. So, yeah, I feel too sick to eat dinner. I'm going to go bathe the kitties, then take a shower myself. Then it's bedtime. Tomorrow's Thursday, but I think I'll skip class to take care of the kitties. I wonder how long it'll take to find Amy's body, considering her whole house already smells like something died in it. Anyway, that's it for tonight. XOXOXO.